Good afternoon. This is the Introduction to Performance Management Tool. It's presented by James Houghton, the Fiscal Agent from Crown Agents, and the intended audience is IPAL, the Ministry of Health and CDC. The original presentation was due for the 10th of June, but given delays, we are recording this so the audience can listen to it at their own times. So this really covers the development of the performance tracking tool, which looks at both individuals and different teams' workflow. It came from the quick wins and the recommendations from Crown Agents. It focuses on tracking the project's most vital tasks so we can improve capacity and increase the absorption rate. The tool will be tested and refined using the CDC's cooperative agreement. It needs to be flexible enough to work with different donors and different processes. It really looks at clearly delineating the responsibilities of every step of each process and identifying each action's owners. It is supposed to be a real-time remote monitoring process. It is output-led and should be verified by the fiscal agent and should provide a very clear dashboard to stakeholders of whether tasks are being completed on time by the correct person and verified for accuracy and compliance. Design of the performance management tool. So originally we have designed this tool on Excel, but we're looking at the possibility of migrating it to smart sheets. It would enable IPAL to demonstrate their own compliance to both the Ministry of Health and CDC. Initially, it would be the role of the fiscal agent to manage the tool. However, the eventual ownership should migrate to IPAL. The tool is based around pillar planning meetings and the structure with which the CoAg takes. So the users will be donors, IPAL, the fiscal agent, and the Ministry of Health programs. It really looks at a Gantt chart which can be summarized in 3 different dashboards, and it really includes the principles of coordination, project management, finance, and procurement, and all the different outputs thereunder. It is verified by the fiscal agent, and it should be on it will be stored on the platform of SharePoint. So the performance management tool will look at the status of each task per month, by each pillar, and by each individual. It is really an extended Gantt chart, which will be updated on a daily basis. It looks at the workflow and its functionality. So for example, if there is a task which is outstanding but coming up to be due, it will be marked in grey, as can be seen as in Friday. Once the task has been completed on time, it will be marked complete and shown in green, as below. If the task is delayed and completed after the deadline, it will be shown in amber. But when the task is eventually completed, it will be shown in green on the date that it was actually completed. But the amber will remain. And if the task is critically delayed, it will be marked in red. And then marked in green when the actual task is complete, but the red will also remain for tracking purposes. In terms of the users of the performance management tool, really the users are anybody who has a task which is on the workflow. The operators initially will be the fiscal agent, and who will update and share the performance management tool, but this will eventually transition to IPAL. And the reviewers are the people who will look at the outputs, i.e. the team lead, the CMO, and the donor, in this case the CDC. And really this is to look at where areas, identify areas that need capacity building and which processes need improvements. So workflow validation. Now obviously there is a need for change control, as things will not always be the same at the beginning of the month as throughout the month. And this ultimate responsibility will fall with the CoAg manager. So the fiscal agent will prepare the workflow at the beginning of every month. The CoAg manager will approve or challenge. The challenges will be accepted and updated, and this will be uploaded onto the SharePoint and share amongst the teams. Subsequent changes to the workflow can come for two main areas. One is action points from agreed meetings, and two, what we call dependency shifts, which we'll talk about in a bit. The action points from agreed meetings really come from either the bi-monthly meetings, the monthly staff meetings, or the quarterly CoAg meetings. It is the chair's responsibility to ensure minutes are taken. The fiscal agent will document any action points. They will then be approved by the chair and then included into the performance management tool once the CoAg manager has approved it. Now, the dependency shifts are a slightly different change, whereas many of the tasks within the workflow will be dependent on another individual completing their task. So, for example, in the procurement process, the information has to be gathered and sent to IPAL for processing. If all the information is not identified and provided to IPAL, they can't process the procurement. So if one individual delays a process, that will mean that the dependent tasks will also need to be shifted, and it shouldn't really be up to the subsequent user to be penalized for their predecessor's delay. Therefore, the timelines have to be shifted. However, there'll often be a hard deadline, which means that it's not a simple case of knocking all the tasks forward by a couple of days. Therefore, the CoAg manager may choose to truncate the timelines. Therefore, if a task is critically delayed, the fiscal agent will realign the workflow which the CoAg manager will approve, and the fiscal agent will notify the new user. Now, there may be some objections by the users whether a task is either delayed or critically delayed. Therefore, we've created an objection log. The objection log is overseen by objection committee. And in the interest of impartiality, the committee consists of IPAL, the fiscal agent, and CDC. This allows the user to email the committee prior to the dashboard being shared with senior management. For an objection to be accepted and then amended, there needs to be unanimous agreement from the committee. All of the committee has access to the specific workflow email to support the decisions. So the workflow email is basically an associated email address which needs to be included in the communications between different teams. It is vital that this email is CC'd into the workflow. If it is not CC'd, then it cannot be validated by the fiscal agent, and therefore any objections that do not have the Gmail CC'd in will not be accepted. In other communication, we're going to be using WhatsApp to efficiently update staff as well as emails, just to let them know about upcoming tasks that are due, and also if there's been any changes in the workflow. And another point which is really important is that users communicate the acceptance of a task, i.e. when a task is handed over, an email is responded saying they've accepted the task and then move it forward. In terms of the dashboard, so the CMO, IPAL team lead, and the donor will be looking at the performance on a monthly basis. This can either be split into individuals or teams, and it will show how much of the task is completed, delayed, or critically delayed. Obviously, our objective is to make sure as much of that is green as possible. This can also be sucked up to be able to present it by team. For example, IPAL, fiscal agent, different pillars within the Ministry of Health. There's also process performance management dashboard. So this is looking at the different processes involved, which ones are successful. So in this example, the fund request from CDC seems to be very successful. However, there seems to be significant problems in the liquidation process. So therefore, this is the dashboard that would suggest that that process needs closer attention. So user acceptance testing. So we're aware that this will take some time to bed in and for everybody to feel comfortable with it. And this is really the period we call the UAT. Crown Agents has drawn on experience from multiple different international offices to try and create a tool that's context specific. So we do encourage feedback and areas of improvement. We're suggesting a period from the 1st of July to the 1st of September for the UAT. Really, this is an opportunity to ensure this it works properly. We'll then have a workshop in September to review and approve it before it goes live. Now, we will be looking to improve the scope of this, and there will be a phase 2, which will potentially be looking at other different donor funds within IPAL, but this is really the discretion of IPAL team lead and the upper management. And really, this is just a very quick introduction. So if there's any issues or any questions, please feel free to get back to either myself, James Houghton, or Ishmael as the fiscal agents. Thank you.